Through the course of time, there have been many different companies who have made witches, all different kinds of forms, shapes, and sizes. However, we do know that the king of witch animatronics has to be the well-known company known as Gemmy. Gemmy has made a trilogy of multiple different kinds of witches. All have their own unique kinds of personality and detail to them. Every witch has been crafted and handmade to fit just that perfect witch vibe that everybody has been looking for. However, there has been controversial types of witches that have been made by Gemmy over the past few years, and over the course of history for that matter. But there's always one that stands out the most. One that has been split 50-50 down both the Haunter community and the Gemmy community for a very, very long time. And that witch animatronic is Sarah the Sassy Witch. Now, Sarah the Sassy Witch has been a controversial animatronic figure throughout the course of a couple years now. And over the time, it seems like Sarah the Sassy Witch has gained a lot of traction amongst the communities of both Haunters and Gemmy collectors. Both communities are split down the middle on the opinion of Sarah the Sassy Witch. However, she's been around since 2013 and has still not failed to yet entertain the public since the time she was made up until modern time. But nobody ever simply asks the question, why is it that Sarah the Sassy Witch is so hated by the community yet so loved? This is probably the coldest case of a controversial animatronic I think that I have been able to find, and that's where I step in. I'm here to question this possible theory and answer why Sarah the Sassy Witch is probably considered one of the most controversial animatronics yet to date. Now, with that being said, let's get into Sarah the Sassy Witch, the cold case of the most controversial Gemmy animatronic ever made. Our story begins back in 2013 when Lowe's started getting their Halloween decorations in for the new Halloween 2013 season. And while everybody was excited, everybody tried to rush to Lowe's around the time of September and October just to see what they could see. And during that time, a brand new witch from Gemmy, unlike what anybody has ever seen before, decided to start making its rounds on the internet. Unlike most other Gemmy witches, this witch looked a little more feminine in her features, with a more human-like nose, a more human-like facial structure, no pointy nose at all, and beautiful clothing. She was definitely a sight to see. Her lighting system was brand new, with a bunch of beautiful lights in the dress and the broom, and even on top of the hat. She said around a few different phrases in which this animatronic did not sound like your typical Gemmy witch.
Ah, yet another creature of the night approaches.
Now we have to remember that this was 2013. This witch came in around the time when Gemmy started cutting back on costs and limits of their resources, meaning that there was already a lot of hate on Gemmy because they stopped making the beautiful animatronics that they did back in 2007, all the way ranging up until then. So was she received well at that time? No, she was not. And the reason for that is because at the time, we started seeing a lot more kid-friendly animatronics coming into the spotlight. And at the time, people like me who grew up in 2001 were still in their teen years, and they were hoping to see something scary and something new and original and something really cool. Yet Sarah the Sassy Witch was not what most of the community was wanting at that time. Now, Sarah the Sassy Witch had two different versions, one in 2013 and one in 2014. And we can also mention that in 2015, there was an unreleased prototype version, but it never made it into the stores. Now, when you think Sarah the Sassy Witch, the first thing you think of is the 2014 model. The 2014 model was a version of Sarah that was quite different compared to the previous version. The color scheme of the dress was a black and pink kind of color scheme. with a blue and also a pink skirt. She was standing behind a cauldron. She also only had one section of white hair and only the front of her head instead of many like the 2013 model did. Now this sassy witch had also a very nice lighting effect in the dress. Her head moved and her eyes lit up as she spoke phrases. Additionally, the cauldron stirs as she speaks, and if water is added, she mists through the cauldron. Now could it be that this witch, because of her color palette, her facial features, her voice, was she just too feminine at the time? Her scare factor not high enough for the haunter community? Or was it that nobody just liked Gemmy at the time because they were starting to go down in quality in their items? Well, I'm here to tell you that I believe when the Sassy Witch did first appear, that was the combination of many different negative emotions that many collectors had towards this animatronic. Now this model is the one model that I believe, and many others believe, that was probably the most hated one. Now why is that per se? Well, comparing it to the 13 model, this was the first version, and it was actually a more younger witch wearing a black and purple dress with a colorful green, black, orange skirt with black and white streaked hair. When activated, her eyes glue red and her head turned as she spoke spooky phrases. Additionally, there are lights in the broom and on the hat, and they continuously light up when activated. Now this witch, in many ways, during her time, was in some ways revolutionary. But when a lot of people saw this animatronic, they did not like the looks of her. But why? And that's always the question I have always asked myself since. Now comparing both models right in front of the screen before you, I wanted to kind of discuss the different features of this animatronic. Because obviously this animatronic is very well created and very well beautifully made by Gemmy. Now there were a lot of things that were thrown out the window during that time. The latex face, the collapsible build model of the original Gemmy animatronics, kind of a more kid-friendly remake of the original pot stirrer and the original witch animatronics that Gemmy has made over the past. So I wanted to talk about the features. So let's look at the first one. This animatronic had the beautiful black hat with the purple band around the hat, a really nice and kind of withered looking broom with a beautiful light system. She had a more feminine-like figure along with a very beautiful face. Her eyes glue up red. She didn't have any mouth movements. However, the beautiful black, purple, orange, and green colors all fit together on her very well. And with that being said, with all these combinations, it is kind of understandable why nobody liked her at the time. With the very feminine-like look, it looks like something, honestly, a more middle-aged kind of woman would probably have in her home. So that way she doesn't scare her kids. And to even reference to the 2014 model, this is where it got a little more downhill from here. This definitely looks like someone with a preppy mom would probably have in the corner of her kitchen or in the corner of her living room. This witch came with a very feminine-like pink color. They kept the black, but changed the colors mainly to a very purplish pink with green, red, purple, and orange lighting, but added a very light blue. Now this one, while she had the pot stirring mechanism, also came with a very feminine color palette. Now again, at the time in 2014, a lot of haunters did not like this kind of stuff. To them, this did not scream Halloween. Halloween to many different kinds of people were colors of red, black, dark blue, kind of dark, swampy green, and so on. This color palette did not fit this, but rather, sadly, looked more kind of like a Disney princess to many other people in the eyes of the Gemmy and the haunter community during the 2014 time era. But what was it exactly that changed the opinion of the Gemmy community and the haunter community towards this Sassy Witch animatronic? Well, during the time after she had been developed, Gemmy started going down even further into the hole when it came to quality of their animatronics. Today, I think the Sassy Witch, for one thing's for sure, has a big nostalgic feeling to them. And a lot of people, comparing it to the modern day Gemmy animatronics, have gone back and said, you know, we didn't have it that bad. And to simply back this theory up more, I would simply like to take a moment to mention two animatronics made by Gemmy during the time around this era. We have the Black Witch Countess and the Black Widow, made by Gemmy, both sold in separate years. However, these animatronics, while very feminine, were way more popular than Sarah the Sassy Witch during her time. Now, why is it exactly? Well, to back this up, I wanted to mention this. Both animatronics had much more creepier faces. On top of that, had a much darker color palette. Now, the darker color palette does appeal a lot more to haunters. Now, to Gemmy collectors, it may appeal half and half. What many Gemmy collectors try to do is appreciate the beautiful artwork that Gemmy tries to provide every year for. And sadly, when it came down to the Sassy Witch, the color palette just wasn't all there. She was a lot more revolutionary and just simply came in at the wrong time. Now, during this time, as mentioned prior, many collectors were hoping to get darker color palettes of animatronics. Ones that kind of fit that eerie and kind of creepy era. And while both animatronics are, as mentioned before, very feminine, comparing them to the Sassy Witch, both of the models to be exact, we can definitely see that these animatronics, the Black Widow and the Black Witch Countess, are a lot more darker and sinister looking compared to Sarah the Sassy Witch. With a more serious face, a more paler skin tone compared to Sarah the Sassy Witch, it is unfortunately a no-brainer as to why these animatronics seem to rise to the top over Sarah the Sassy Witch. Because of the fact that these animatronics were made for a more scarier atmosphere. But I do believe, personally, as somebody who has been investigating into this and knows somebody who has the prototype animatronic Sarah the Sassy Witch, could it have been possible that if they had kept her as a more darker and kind of more eerie-like animatronic, would it have worked? The best example, in my personal opinion, is the prototype itself. The prototype was a little different at the time. And what better way to honestly explain this than to give it to my buddy Darth Sidious to show and compare the differences between the Sassy Witch prototype and the one produced back in 2014. So without any further ado, I wanted to get into this small little video that Darth Sidious provided for me to give to you all, to just kind of show you all the differences between both models and kind of give a more better insight as to what exactly this animatronic would have looked like before it got the feminine color palette that it did. So without any further ado, I will give it to my buddy Darth Sidious. Take it away.
Hey everyone, Darth Sidious here, and I wanted to make this comparison video between the two Sassy Witches that I own, since I never really did that when I first posted the video on this prototype. So I guess we could just start with the top, and they both have their witch hats. This one, of course, is the original one that came with this witch, but the one with the prototype is actually from Walmart. I got it for like, I think $10. And I got it, one, because it fit so well with her color scheme. And also, I just really liked the lace that came off of the hat. And it really reminded me of the 2013 version. And then I guess we could go on to the face. This has a much harsher green than the other one, and you can see the makeup is also quite different as well. She's got black eyeliner and black eyebrows. Her eyeshadow is gold and purple, while she's got sort of this pinkish red lipstick. And she does have blush, although you can't really see it too well on camera, but it's sort of a purple blush. While this one has just brown eye makeup, and the eyebrows are also brown as well, but you can't really see those too well. She does have blush, that is red blush, and of course the black lipstick. So now we can go on to the outfit. She's got this black top with this ribbon going across the front. and a little spider right there. This one is kind of similar. It's got black and, of course, purple at the front, and the bat right there. I actually had to replace one of the eyes because it had fallen off. And this one is really interesting because it's got this black and gold sort of material going up and down, which looks really cool. And then, of course, the arms here, they're pink. The sleeves are pink, and this is actually the same look that the 2013 Sassy Witch had, where the sleeves were that sort of same shape. Well, this one, they are those big sleeves with this really nice lace, sort of flower lace here, and then of course underneath that you've got sort of this shiny purple fabric, but it just looks really nice and fits the character very well. And then the fingernails, the nails on this one are actually very light green. You can kind of see it. It's slightly different than the green of her hand there. Well, this one actually has black fingernails, which I think works much better than the green because it pops more. And then I guess we could go to the dress. This one, of course, has all the lights and stuff in it. And it's got strips of different colored fabric. These are actually a lot thinner than the ones of the prototype because these are just thick strips of fabric that go all the way around. And she does not have any lights in the dress whatsoever. And then she has ribbon to tie around her waist there. She also has that too, but she also has a bow that's just on the costume right there with just a hint of orange in there, which I think looks really, really cool. And then we've got the legs, and they've got the striped legs like a lot of the Gemmy witches do. And the 2014 one has those little pom-poms on the front, while the prototype does not. I'm not really sure why they did that, but either way, I think both of them still look really cool. And I think it's really cool to see like what Gemmy did with this one and then what they were going to do with this one, because they changed a lot, and it's really cool to see that. Also, I wanted to mention the differences in the hair for each version. The 2014 one, of course, is just mostly black hair with that one white streak. And then the 2015 prototype is just, it's very similar to the 2013 version with multiple streaks of white hair, which I think is actually, I prefer this look to the one streak. I think it looks really cool.
Now, since then, the taste in animatronic designs have drastically changed. Not to mention that over the course of history, it seems like the Halloween color palette has expanded tremendously when it comes to bright and beautiful colors. Along with that, the third and final reason is because of the fact that we have had other witch animatronics, similar to the Mythical Witch, come into play. Now, as a Mythical Witch fan myself, I have to admit that the Mythical Witch is a very beautiful animatronic, and I also do believe was referenced off of the Sassy Witch animatronic. Now, the Mythical Witch animatronic was an animatronic that was sold at Walmart back in 2022, kind of last minute during that time, probably for a last minute money grab for SVI. However, when she was first announced, many different collectors actually really appreciated the beautiful art style of this animatronic. Now, but why is it that when Sassy Witch was introduced to the Haunter community, but yet Mythical Witch was introduced to the community, many different reactions occurred? Well, I'm here to tell you that I do believe that the Mythical Witch reactions were based off of the form of nostalgia. The very similar lighting system to Sarah the Sassy Witch and a beautiful feminine-like structure and face, this Mythical Witch was very well put together. However, with that being said, the fact that we are living in a time where animatronics have slightly, mildly, and sadly downgraded, these animatronics definitely are more appreciated, especially if they act and seem to be a little more like a traditional Gemmy animatronic. She is very similar to Sarah the Sassy Witch. I do also believe that now that a new generation of Haunters and Gemmy collectors have come up into the crowd of the Haunter and Gemmy community, this probably means that the taste palette has also changed over the course of time. Many different kinds of kid-friendly, more feminine-like props are also being appreciated more in modern day. This proves that over time, Sarah the Sassy Witch became more of an iconic animatronic, not for just being herself, but for 1, the nostalgia, 2, the classic Gemmy builds, 3, how far Gemmy has gone down the hole over the years, and 4, being able to compete with other beautiful and bright feminine-like animatronics that we see today. Now, while my theory did manage to conclude a lot of really good points in my opinion to sum up this entire cold case, I was still just driven at the idea, and it was still eating at me, that Sarah the Sassy Witch was still hated so much. So I did a poll, and while that sadly didn't do much, a lot of people did seem to have some negative things to say about her. And I did wonder and question why. So I thought instead of just doing polls, I would reach out to somebody who would be able to provide a little bit more of a better answer. And while I did reach out to a couple and sadly didn't hear much, I did find my buddy Darth Sidious as per usual, and he wanted to put his insight on this situation. So I wrote down 5 questions to simply show and ask Darth Sidious what exactly his thoughts were on the certain situations of Sarah the Sassy Witch. And on the screen right now, you can see those questions. Now, those questions were sent to him, and he simply answered them in a small video that I am going to provide for you all. So, without any further ado, let's get into the amazing interview with my buddy Darth Sidious from the Gemmy community.
I just wanted to make a quick video on some questions that I have about the Sassy Witch. One question is, what are my opinions on this character? And I think she's fantastic. She's very different and unique compared to some of the other things that Gemmy has made in past years. Another question I have is, why do you think she was not accepted during her time, which was 2013 to 2014? I think that is because she's just more kid-friendly than your typical Gemmy Witch. Like, she's got a younger face, which is completely different to, you know, your typical Gemmy Witch, which is a little older and a little more scary, I guess. But even then, the older witches were not that scary. I think Gemmy was trying to market towards a younger demographic, because I was 10 when the 2013 version came out, and I thought it was fantastic. I remember seeing the first video on YouTube, and I thought that is the coolest thing ever. So I think they definitely nailed it when marketing towards the younger generation, because I thought it was a great prop. Also, I think Gemmy wanted to market something a little nicer, because the Lowe's animatronics, if you look at past years, they've all been very kid-friendly, I think. And I think Gemmy wanted to sort of stick with that, whereas, with stuff with Spirit Halloween or Party City even, they had the scarier props back in the days, so I think Gemmy wanted to stick with what they were good at with the props that they had at Lowe's. Another question I have is comparing the Sassy Witch to the 2022 SVI Mythical Witch. Why do I think the Mythical Witch might have been better accepted than the Sassy Witch? I think one reason is because of brand loyalty. I'm very loyal to Gemmy, as you know. Most of my props are Gemmy items, but I know there are a lot of collectors that love SVI, love what they do. They're very innovative, but I think it has to do with brand loyalty, because, some people, they really like that company, and they're going to buy everything that the company produces. And I think people have really sort of come around to the idea of a younger witch since 2013, even though we have not seen many younger witch animatronics since then. But of course, Gemmy, they had the 2015 Countess and the 2016 version of the Countess, which coincidentally looked very similar to the 2014 Sassy Witch. But yeah, I think it's just people have started to change their minds about, having younger characters as Halloween animatronics, and brand loyalty as well. Another question I have is, if the Sassy Witch were created again, what do I think it would look like, and how do I think it would be received? Well, just going off of what Gemmy has done in the past few years, where they've completely restructured their animatronics, sort of like this prototype where it has the newer construction, I think it would have something similar to that for the structure. And I think, I'm not sure what they would do with the stance. Would they have her with the cauldron again, or would they have her with a broom? I think they would probably have her with a broom again, because they had made the Evil Witch from 2018 to 2021, and that had a broom. And they haven't made a Cauldron Witch since 2015, although there have been Cauldron Witch prototypes from the past few years that have just not gotten released. I think they would also, I think they would stick with the same phrases, possibly the same animation. I don't know if they would bother putting in the lights in the dress again, because those were really faulty in the produced models, I've heard, and it probably was pretty expensive to do that, which might have been one reason why the prototype does not have lights in the dress. But yeah, I would kind of like to see her come back pretty much as she was, with no real differences, because it's sort of a character I think people would recognize, and I don't really know if they'd want to get something that looks different from the original, but who knows. People like the horror character remakes that Gemmy has been making, so you never know what people will buy. But yeah, if the Sassy Witch did come back, I'd certainly be the first person in line to get it. So, final thoughts. I think that this character is a fantastic character, and it really is a shame that Gemmy did not go really where they wanted to with this character, because there are two other prototypes besides this one that did not get produced. So you could tell that they were trying to make many more versions of this character than what they had actually produced. So, you know, it's really a shame that we never got to see what they were planning to do with this character. But seeing, you know, the hate that she got for, you know, the character and everything, I could kind of see why Gemmy just didn't want to continue producing the character. But I think in recent years, people have started to accept her a little bit more, and I don't know if that has anything to do with the videos I've posted or anything else anyone else has posted, but I think people just sort of look back at, you know, the props that we initially thought were awful and say, you know, that wasn't really that bad, because I've definitely looked back at the some of the Lowe's props from 2015 and 2016, and I'm like, you know, they're actually not as bad as I originally thought they were. So I think it's just retrospective, and, you know, seeing that what you initially thought was terrible is not, you know, as bad as it was. Also want to say a huge thank you to my friend Jimmy Bones for having me collab with him on this video. It's been a lot of fun to do, and I've enjoyed working with him behind the scenes on helping this project come together. So thank you so much for letting me collab on your channel.
So finally, to conclude this case, I would say that Sarah the Sassy Witch, even though she has so much dirt on her, and with all the different kinds of elements that have been put together to bring her down, Sarah the Sassy Witch somehow has made her way back up further to the top of good animatronics today. Now, while she might be a little cheesy, yes, she might be a little more kid-friendly, yes, she might be a little more feminine, we do see that Sarah the Sassy Witch is much more appreciated in the community as today. Could it be that maybe she was referenced off of one of the best characters from the Munsters? Who knows? But only time will tell where Sarah the Sassy Witch falls later on down the line. I hope you all did enjoy this cold case video. If you did, let me know what you think in the comments below. This is another cold case video or an investigative files video with your host, Gemmy Bones. I will talk to you guys in the next video. See ya.